So we're being asked to subtract 2/3 minus 3/5. Um, the first thing when you're adding or subtracting fractions, you want to make sure that the denominators are the same. That's the first thing you want to check for. So without even looking at the top two numbers, we know that this fraction is going to need some work before we can subtract it. Because again, so this first fraction, 2/3, is cut up into 3 parts, whereas this second fraction, 3/5, is cut up into 5 parts. That's going to be a problem when you get down to the computation trying to subtract. So what we want to do is to make a situation where both of these fractions are cut up into the same amount of pieces. That's the first thing that we want to do. So how we're going to do that is just multiplying both of the denominators together. We're going to multiply 3 times 5. So 3 times 5 is going to give us 15. And we're going to now use 15 as the denominator for both of these fractions, fraction 1 and fraction 2. Again, so 15, we're going to now make 15 the denominator for both of these fractions. And now we can start to look at the numerators. Excuse me. So again, looking at this first fraction, 2/3, we started with a denominator of 3, and we ended with a denominator of 15. So we scaled that denominator by 5. We started with 3 and we ended up with 15. So we want to make sure that we do the same thing for the numerator. We have to also scale that up by 5. And so 2 times 5, that's going to give us 10. And now we can move to this next fraction. So we have 3/5. Our denominator at first was 5, and when we kind of worked through it, the denominator we got was 15. So we scaled up this denominator by 3. We manipulated it, we changed it, we altered it to where it went from 5 to 15. And so we scaled it up by 3. So we have to maintain the integrity of the fraction to make sure that we don't change the value of it. We have to also multiply the numerator by 3. And so that's going to give us 9. And we leave our subtraction sign. And so now that we have both of these fractions cut up in the same amount of pieces, and we make sure that we scaled up our numerators, now the only thing left to do is to go through with our subtraction. So when you're adding or subtracting fractions, the denominator does not change. So we're going to keep that as 15 because, remember, we changed it. We manipulated it. So now our new denominator is 15. And now what we have to do is just subtract the numerators, which is 10 minus 9, which is going to be 1. And so this is our answer. 2/3. This is the answer to our original problem. 2/3 minus 3/5 equals 1/15. Let's try another example. let's say we have, let's do 2 over 5 minus 2 over 7. So again, the first thing that we want to observe is the denominator. How many pieces are each of these fractions cut up into? So this first fraction is cut up into 5 pieces, and the second one is cut up into 7 pieces. So that's going to be a problem when we get down to the subtraction and computation. So what we want to do is make both of these fractions to where they're cut up in the same amount of pieces. Right now, again, one is cut up into 5 and the other one's cut up into 7, and that won't work. So what we're going to do is multiply the denominators, 5 times 7, and that'll be 35. And we're going to make that the new denominator for both of our fractions. I'm going to leave our subtraction sign right there. So for this first fraction, we started with a denominator of 5 on the bottom, and we ended up with 35 as the new denominator. So we scaled this denominator by 7. 7 times 5 is 35. So we have to do the same thing for our numerator. So moving on to the second fraction, 2 over 7. We started with a denominator of 7, and we ended with a denominator of 35. So we scaled this denominator by 5. And so, again, to maintain the integrity of the fraction, we have to scale the numerator by the same amount. Make sure we don't change the value of it. So 2 times 5 is going to give us 10. And now that we have both of our fractions cut up in the same amount of pieces, and we made sure that we scaled up the numerators, now all we have to do is subtract. So when you subtract fractions, the denominator stays the same. And now we just have to subtract the numerators, which is 14 minus 10. That's going to give us 4. So 2 over 5 minus 2 over 7 is going to equal 4 over 35. Let's do one more example. Let's not do 1 over 6. Let's do 4 over 6. Four over 6 minus 2 over 6. So the first thing that we want to do is check to see if each fraction is cut up into the same amount of pieces. And for this example, we do have both fractions being cut up in the same amount of pieces. So that makes this a lot easier. So we don't have to manipulate this at all. What we can do is just subtract straight across. So again, when you're subtracting fractions, the denominator stays the same. So the denominator is still going to be 6. And so now all we have to do is subtract the numerators. 4 minus 2, rather. That's going to be 2. So that's going to be our numerator. And so 4 over 6 minus 2 over 6 is going to be 2 over 6.